Okay. So updated.
Is he gonna need a?
I'm so glad you came over, John. All this kind of stuff needs allowing, so I should be away. So now I go here and. Okay, so now let's take a look at Blackboard. So we're going to do the online virtual lab this week. And let's take a look at what else we have in Blackboard this week. So again, this is our virtual lab, and you'll save it and upload it into the tab. And then look at the other things that we will be doing this week in our chapter note assignments. Okay, so click on the dashboard, you'll see chapter notes and assignments. All right, and then you will see chapter 1, Introduction to Physiology and Homeostasis, right? So if you click on it, you'll see these little assignments with blue circles. Okay, so what does that mean if it has a blue circle? Cengage, that's correct, yes. So has anyone gotten into Cengage yet? Oh, good, we have 2. All right, so when you click on the first one, I really suggest you do the pre or post learning first, or the study questions first to log in instead of Athlea's. It's a little easier. These are extra study help things, and you get 0.1 points for them. So hey, they add up. They're not required. I'll show you where the points are, but you can click on this to activate your Cengage. So you activate it clicking on one of these blue circles. It'll ask you to put in your name, your information. Use your what email? Eastern email. Eastern email. Okay. Use your Eastern email. They have had some little bit of issues with Chrome. So if you're having issues with Chrome, use Firefox as a browser. Okay. I've been using Chrome some, but when I'm activating it, I've been having a few issues, and they said, well, switch to Firefox. So if you're having issues, switch over to Firefox and close it out and get back in. Okay. I know that's a hassle, but it seems to be causing some issues. But then you'll have how many weeks of free access to Cengage? Anybody read the notes on that? Yeah, 2 weeks, 14 days. So you can click on the free access, and you'll have free access to the books. You'll have free access to the assignments, but you have to purchase the Cengage card. If you're in a lot of other classes, they also use Cengage, and you can get the Cengage Unlimited for like 100. How much is it this semester? 118. Yes, it was 118, $119, and that's for like 4 or 5 classes like that you can use that code for, which is really cheap. $119 for 5 books. That's awesome for college, right? That's why we're using Cengage. I've used McGraw Hill in the past, but Cengage is kind of what we're using now to kind of save money for you guys. Okay. So you'll click on these, and let's go ahead and click on this guy. I'm already activated, so mine will look a little different than yours because it'll require that first login. And after that, you won't have to log in again. Okay. Once you put in your code, unless you're using the free access, and then 2 weeks you'll time out on it. Okay. So it's just like other classes where there's little questions. You'll start the assignment and you'll answer some study questions. So this is fill in the blank. You want to spell it properly, and then you can check my work. And you can click on kind of that. And it's a really good study guide. I really like these myself. Okay. Just a minute. Close that out. Do you have any questions about the Cengage component? Anyone? What you're going to do in Cengage. So if you go back, you'll see the assignments, right? The Athleas are a little bit like the Connect assignments, a little bit that you did in anatomy. So play with these. You guys have Thursday to get all these done, all right? So to come into class, try to get all these knocked out and your lab, right? Because you have that extra bit of time. Plus, you know, we have the lab time to get the lab done. So I really encourage you to jump in there and get started. And I'm going to be checking on it. So by the time you come in on Tuesday, you should be ready for chemistry. Okay, so the chemistry, chapter 2 assignments are already there. If you click on chapter 2, there's the chapter 2 things, but the chemistry is in the appendix. So you can go to the appendix and read the appendix and Cengage. Okay, and I could have showed you that. It's at the bottom of the Cengage assignment tab. All right, so we see chapter notes and assignments, where to find those. We see lab reports, where to find those. And you'll upload your lab. This has worked better than turning the labs in at the end of class period, because some people turn them in and they turn them in such a timely manner, or they miss a page, or they forget to put their name on it. That's usually the problem. A lot of people forget to put their name. So by uploading, I know where it comes from. Makes my grading easier. It goes in the grading sheet, and you guys can't say, I know I gave you that lab. I'm like, well, if you didn't upload it, I didn't receive it. Right? There's no question, because you might think you did. It might be in your book or in your bag. Right? No, it uploads into an assignment grading tab. So you go week 1 lab. Once you complete this, you'll open this and save it, and then you'll open the lab, and then you'll browse my computer, and then once you find it, it'll allow you to upload it and you submit, and then I can grade it easily. And this makes it lovely because we have less paper out there, saves trees. You guys can do this at home, right? Okay, which brings me to a point. In this room, the Wi-Fi is out. Have y'all noticed? It is available in the WandaBest in the library area, and the computers in the Mac are wired into the wall. So you can use those today as well as those in the library. But they wanted to let you know they're working on the Wi-Fi. They said it may be a couple weeks. So be aware. And so what I suggest, if you want to download the book or the notes before you come to class, download them in Clark and bring it in. Right? So you can do that. Any questions? It's great because sometimes you don't have to. We're going to make do without it. Okay. So let's look at the syllabus and talk about some of those things that we will do in class. Do you have any questions about anything we cover so far? You can tell I've been hanging out with local people. I do a lot of y'alls right now. Do you have any questions? Oh, we live in Oklahoma. What can you say, right? It's a fun state to live in. I think other people are finding us now like, man, this is such a fun state. All they want to do is fish and hunt and ride four-wheelers. And we have a great life here, right? No stress. We're chill, which I do all those things for them. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at our syllabi. You're not going to be able to download it today, right? So this is how many pages, right? There's my information. I'm across the hall, office hours, 2:33. So I get here early. Also after class, sometimes you'll find me on Tuesday after lab between it and nutrition, but these are my office hours before class. Okay, so if you need to find me, I'm across the hall, room 233. And then I'll be in Wilburton these other days, and then virtual on Friday. You can email me anytime. I email, if it's a weekend, it may be a day, 24 hours, but usually I email pretty quickly. During the week, expect, a 24-hour at least return, but usually it's within, if I'm in class, I'm not gonna be able to check my email. Some days I'm in class all day long, right? I may not check it until after class or before class, but I do check my emails a lot. I'll email you back. Okay, so there's course description. There's the Cengage book. And they didn't change it, thankfully. If you want the hardbound book, you can purchase it, I think, from the publisher. I don't know how much it costs to the publisher right now, but this is the book. That's what it looks like. You can rent it to the bookstore if you like hardbound. But again, you'll have the electronic version when you get the Cengage code. Technology, this is all the technology, Office 365. There's my email again. It's at the top again with my office information, my telephone number in my office. Again, I am in class and lab all the time. So if you call my office, I'm going to be in class probably. I'm probably not going to be able to answer my phone. I will get to my phone, but email me, okay? And I check in between classes because we check on our phones all the time, right? And that's faster. Okay. Test proctoring is HonorLock. How many of you already used HonorLock before? Raise your hand. Okay, online testing. So they know who you are and what you're doing, right? They call me, they email me, they let me know if you're cheating, you have anything, if they're looking at your watch or the iWatch, or if you're looking at notes, phone, whatever, they let me know. Okay, so they watch you take your test. So you'll go in, you log in to take your test. Yes.
I have a crazy question about that. I actually,
Uh-huh.
so situations arise.
Right.
Are you getting reported that every time?
We can, sure.
That's gonna be ridiculous. I apologize.
Okay, so what I suggest is,
I try to hide from them and everything, and I just, every once in a while, something comes up.
right,
Dad's got it.
anything
We
you
have
get at,
broken nose last year.
oh, wow,
Yeah, and I have to walk away.
right.
The test, they broken up.
The best option, and I know it's hard with children and families, especially in COVID, people were in the home, all stuck together. The best thing is to have someone, like you were taking the test on campus, have someone keeping the children while you take the test. Okay? And then that situation's not going to arise. So prepare for it's what I'm saying. The good thing is I give you guys a lengthy period of time to take the HonorLock test. It's not 1 hour like it would be in a classroom. So you can plan when you want to take the test. So if the kids are not up at 2 a.m., right, you can take it at 2 a.m. It's 24-hour service. Does that make sense? But it will affect your test because if this starts, I can't do it. I have to do the same for everyone, right? Everyone has situations with kids and spouses and all kinds of things. So you have to find, even in the dorm, it's really hard. You can imagine if you have a roommate and you're trying to do an HonorLock test. So they may have a room here where you can do it before you leave campus. And that's what I would suggest to you. Use your time here wisely. And maybe you could go in and do an HonorLock test here. I think you can do it in the library. Anyone do testing in the library? I think you can do it in the library. That's a safe place. Your kids aren't going to come in there, right?
I said nothing past this one.
Okay, right. Well, it does show up. I mean, they will flag it. And so then it's a hard decision, for an instructor to decide what to do in that. Okay. So I don't like to make those decisions. So I like you guys to be professional. And, if you were taking your boards online, nursing boards, you would have it quiet and the kids would not be around. Sure, that's your butter, your bread and butter, right? This is your bread and butter too, right? So it's your grade. So find a secure place and make sure that at all possible. If something extreme happens, it happens. But we shouldn't expect very many of those, right? It should be a rare incident. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay. And nursing will do the same thing. So you know what's going to happen in nursing, right? They use online testing too. So it is a way to get adjusted to how we have to do things. Okay. So library media, any more questions about anything? Does that sound fair? Course level objectives, grading. Okay, this is the part where we add up the dollars, right? Nickels make dollars, dimes make dollars, so forth. So in class assignment, we'll have 26 of those. Each one's worth 10 points. There's a 29 total, 3 will be dropped. And this is attendance required. You can't send me in class assignments if you didn't come to class. Like one of your neighbors did, they did the assignment, and they shoot a picture and then like, here's my assignment, Dr. Collins. Well, you didn't come to class, you don't get the points, right? It's like you don't go to work, you don't get the paycheck, right? It's the same thing. So it rewards people coming to class and doing the work, just like your job. Same thing, just like a job. Online quizzes, we saw those. and we have 19 of those. Mind taps, you saw those applias. The lecture exams, those are your honor lock exams, okay? And let's take a look at that. It's already on your schedule. So you see the date when we have our exam one. Do you guys see the date on our exam one? What date does it say? And what's it over? On the side, you'll see. You're good, good. Yes, chapters 1, 2, Appendix A, and it's over. That was the chemistry part, right? Appendix A was the chemistry. I don't know why they put chemistry in the appendix, but they did. But we still have it in our book. Okay, Zoom presentations. We're gonna try to do Zoom presentations. Last semester we had 2 ice storms, and so we didn't get to do those, but I plan to do those. I'll announce those later on in the semester, but you'll present over a disease process and the physiology behind that disease process. Okay, so we'll talk more about that. That's a really fun, neat thing. And it really gives you the opportunity to become that professional because you'll be presenting in nursing or respiratory therapy. You'll be presenting to patients, families, maybe doctors, right? I've done many presentations in my career field when I worked in clinical settings with doctors and nurses and respiratory therapists and all, physical therapists. So you need to be prepared to be able to do that professionally. Okay, so that'll give you an opportunity to do that. Our lab reports, like the one we just talked about, those are 25 points each. And then our final exam, which is comprehensive. And you'll see the normal letter grade scale, late work. I will not reset the Cengage assignments. You see they're already there. And the due dates, the chapters 1, 2 assignments will close the Friday when we take our exam, okay, at midnight. So you'll see the due dates already posted on them, right? You saw that. So you have to get them done before the due. Don't ask me to repost them because they've been there a while. They'll be there like 2 weeks. I'm like, why didn't you get them done? I can't pay you for work you didn't do. It's like going into a job. You want me to pay you for a job you didn't do? I can't do it. Same thing, points or job, just like a job. So any questions about that? Okay. So exams, they're open for extended period. I open them typically on Monday or Tuesday, usually Tuesday, and they're open and they close on Friday. So you have like a whole week, 24 hours, which people love. Because if you work at night, you can get up in the morning and take it. Or if you work during the day, in between, you can take it at night or at 2 a.m. So there's time. There, you can't say, I didn't get a chance to take my test unless you're in the hospital. You can take your test, right? Is that kind of cool to be able to do that now? Instead of having to do paper tests and you have that 1 hour, and if you don't get it in, you sleep in and something happens, it's a disaster. No, we don't have that anymore. You get to do it on your schedule, right? Okay. So there are a few extra credit assignments. Like if you do the extra, there's not like ones that I'm going to announce later, but the extra Cengage assignments I told you about, those add up as little points here and there. So there are a little extra points here and there. All right. So we talked about MindTap, Zoom. If we have to go to Zoom, clothing is not optional. Evidently, someone Zoomed on our campus, I think in the dorm. I found out this answer to this one because I asked, I'm like, why is this in our Zoom instructions? They said it was someone who wore gym shorts and no top is the guy. That's not appropriate for honor lock or Zoom. Okay. You have to wear clothes. Okay. This was in front of the whole class during the pandemic. I thought that was kind of funny. Gave us something to talk about, right? Anyway, clothing's not optional. Wear your clothes. Anyway, AW policy. So if you quit coming to class before the drop dates, then I can AW you from the class to keep you from getting a failing grade and affecting your future financial aid. So these are the last days to draw or withdraw. So there's the dates. no cheating, no plagiarism, giving assistance during exam or quiz. All this is 0, you know. Plagiarism is cutting and pasting from the internet or copying someone else's work. We talked about that. That's not good. You guys are professionals. Y'all aren't going to do that. I have full faith that you guys are professionals. ADA policies, if you have any special needs or you have a disability, you can, this is the contact information that you'll contact for that to let them know. Okay. So we'll make accommodations. Any questions about the syllabi? No questions about the syllabus? Okay, let's get out a sheet of paper. Let's do a quick think time. So we have in-class assignments. You guys remember that? We'll do a quick one. So always come with pencil, paper, come prepared because we have these in-class assignments. Again, these we have 26 and they're worth 10 points each, right? Dimes make dollars. Just put your name on it. That's always first, right? Put your name on it. So, what is my policy about plagiarism and cheating? What is my policy in the syllabi about plagiarism and cheating that we just went over? What is my policy according to the syllabi? What is my policy about plagiarism and cheating? Should be easy answer, right? We just went over. All right, when is our first 1-hour exam due and how will you take your exam one? When is our first 1-hour exam? And how will you take it? When is it and how will you take it? And if y'all are paying attention, right? This is kind of basic. Y'all are expecting something really hard. You're like, she's already given us a test on the day one. Really come material. I'll see if you're paying attention. All right. I've never done this before, but I thought, this might be a good way to kind of verify what's in the syllabus, right? Next question. Are we doing a lab this week? And how do we submit our lab? Are we doing a lab this week and how are we submitting a lab? That was pretty easy starting out, wasn't it? And it gave me time to switch over to lecture. Okay, so we still have time because we go to 11:15, right? So, welcome to physiology again. Let's jump in chapter 1. So what are we going to talk about in chapter 1? The buzzword for the day, homeostasis. Homeostasis, good job. Buzzword for the day. What on earth does homeostasis mean? Anyone read ahead on that one or look at the notes? What does homeostasis mean? Somewhere in one of these slides. It means our body has this dynamic system, but yet things remain relatively constant. Huh. Right? Have you noticed that your body temperature changes like constantly? Have you noticed that you were hot? Your skin was hot when you were outside in the sun. You came inside and it starts to cool. Different things start to go on. We're going to talk about that temperature regulation. You notice your homework assignments about temperature regulation. So what controls homeostasis? That's what we're going to learn. What controls homeostasis? So that's what physiology is all about. Okay, is the things that control the homeostasis, keeping our body in a relatively stable level, even though variables are always changing. Okay? That's what we're going to learn. All right, so physiology is the study of the what of living things. Function versus anatomy is the study of the what? Structure. So you should have learned structure and anatomy, and now you're going to learn how things work. It's kind of like your auto mechanic, like you learn what the parts and the tools are, and then you get in deeper, you learn how to use it and how it works and what happens when things go off. It's the same thing with the human body. It's basically that same thing. All right. So quick think time. You have your sheet of paper, right? You ready? What's the difference between anatomy and physiology? What is the difference between anatomy and physiology? Same sheet, same sheet. You're going to turn these in at the end of class, and we'll put them on that table by the door. So what's the difference between anatomy versus physiology? By the way, you saw the lecture notes are there, right? Chapter 1. You can download those. Print like 6 per page if you print them in the library, not 1 per page, okay? And they can help you in the library if you need help printing. All right, so you probably learned this anatomy. So we start at the cellular and subcellular level of physiology, right? So we said our body's made up of how many cells? Trillions, right? How would you like to count them all, right? And we know cells are the basic functional unit of what? Life. Cells are the basic functional unit of life. And so we could go backwards from cells, right? Because cells are also made up of little smaller components, right? We call the organelles within the cells. And those organelles are made up of molecules. And then we go down to the tiniest, right? Tiniest substance, it would be what? A molecular level. Atoms. Yeah, atoms. We also call them elements, right? So we could go backwards. So when we think about atoms, some of these you may have learned a little bit about, like hydrogen and carbon and oxygen, nitrogen. These are important atoms that make up our body and that we use to do different things. So those might make sense to you when you look at the atoms. And then atoms linked together are called what? Molecules. And it could be simple molecules like water. What's water? H2O. You guys remember Waterboy, right? H2O. That's high quality H2O. That's one of my favorite movies because he's funny. All right, and then macromolecules. You guys will get this in if you're in microbiology. Proteins, lipids, carbohydrates. We call them macronutrients in nutrition, right? So the larger compounds, macro meaning large, right? Nucleic acids such as DNA and RNA. And then we said organelles and then cells, the basic functional unit of life. And then cells that group together that perform a specific function, help make a discrete part of an organ are called what? We'll come back to this. Tissues. Y'all remember that? So we go atoms. What? Next one level of organization would be molecules. Then we go cells and then tissues, right? And we have 4 primary tissue types. You guys remember that from anatomy? Hopefully you will. If not, this is a review. We'll catch it first week in anatomy, right? So what are the 4 primary tissue types? On the screen. Yes. Do they look different? Did the cells look different under a microscope when you look at it in a microscope? Absolutely. And they each have different jobs, right? So where would we find nervous tissue? They do. So where would we find them? That's good. Nerves, yep. Good example. The peripheral nerves. Where else? our brain, right? Spinal cord, and then of course all those peripheral nerves. So when we get down to the cellular level, the cells that conduct the impulse are called, do y'all remember from anatomy? Neurons, right? Neurons are the cell that release that chemical messenger called the neurotransmitter. We're going to get into that deeper, okay? So we think of nervous tissue. I heard someone say muscle tissue. So within muscle tissue, we have 3 different types, right? What are the 3 different types of muscle tissue? Yes, skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Where do we find smooth muscle? Arteries, good example. Veins, where else? Organs, digestive organs, yeah, throughout that digestive tract, absolutely. And we'll talk about more areas. What about cardiac? Heart, you bet. And then skeletal muscle? Yeah, touch the bones, help us move and do the work. Which of these is voluntary? Skeletal, good answer. We get to decide when we want to work out or not work out. It's an easy way to remember, right? This guy, what is he on? What is this guy? Starts with an E. Epithelial tissue. Where do we find epithelial tissue? Skin, the outer layer of skin is called the what? Epidermis. Do you guys remember that? So the cells are tightly packed together, help form a barrier. So lining the internal portion, right? The respiratory tract, digestive tract, urinary tract. We have these epithelial cells, right? Tightly packed together. Do they help create a barrier? Yeah, absolutely. Very important in helping provide a barrier, but they also allow for exchange to take place too, okay? And then the connective tissue we find everywhere, right? Connective tissue is everywhere. So connects, supports. There's also a liquid connective tissue. You guys remember liquid connective tissue? Is what? I heard someone say it. What? What'd you say? Good, close. You're on the definite. Blood. Yeah, blood. Plasma is the liquid part of blood. You bet. Yeah, absolutely. So connective tissue has some cells and a lot of stuff. So blood has the cells, like red blood cells, white blood cells, and your platelets. And then the liquid part is your plasma. That's the extracellular stuff, right? Good answer. Good job. You're thinking. We have to use our brain to think this through. All right, so 4 primary tissue types, right? Muscle, epithelial, connective, and nervous. Okay, you ready for a quick think time? What are the 4 primary tissue types? Wing the spelling if you need to. What are the 4 primary tissue types? I should have that one down for anatomy. If not, you get ready to go anatomy, you'll be like on it, in it to win it. Right? You're like, I know that answer. And the instructor, Dr. Green, will be like, you're so bright. I can't believe you already know that. It pays off, just saying. All right, next question. What is an example of liquid connective tissue? Give me an example of liquid connective tissue. The liquid connective tissue. We just talked about that. What is liquid? Give me an example of liquid connective tissue.
That's the only one, or it's spinal fluid?
No, it's not. Spinal fluid's not. Liquid blood is it. Yeah. Kind of cool. You're thinking it through though, because remember, to be a tissue, it's going to be cells, and then the connective tissue has a lot of cells with a lot of extracellular matrix. We call it stuff. So it may be fibers, right? Like fiber cartilage. Y'all remember fiber cartilage? Hyaline cartilage, right? Dense regular connective tissue. Remember that one? Like tendons, ligaments. They're like, oh yeah, I remember all that. I love teaching that in anatomy. It's fun. If we had time, we'd look at a microscope. We don't have time. You guys covered that in anatomy. So we talked about epithelial tissue. So epithelial tissue, we said is tightly packed together, right? That's characteristics. You can see these cells, see how they're tightly packed together. And this is showing epithelial tissue also makes up glands, both endocrine glands and exocrine glands. Okay, so you should have learned this from anatomy. What's the difference between endocrine glands and exocrine glands?
For the excrete.
That's right, the way they excrete. You have,
One's down on the inside and one's down on the outside.
well, we often think about that when we think about sweat glands, right? But we also have exocrine glands in our pancreas, right? And that's deep, but that's good.
Like inside organs and then difference between stuff that are inside the organ and then the outside part of it.
I think I know where you're going on that. So let me simplify it for you in the whole class. So if you'll notice, this is an example of an exocrine gland. See the tube, right? And it could be simple or it could be more complicated. It could even be branched, like some of our specific, like sebaceous glands and so forth. But you'll notice, or mammary glands, milk secreting glands, are also exocrine glands. You'll see a tubing called a duct. Okay, so anytime you think of exocrine glands, the secretions are going to travel through a duct, which means tubing, like your ductwork in your house, right, for heat and air. Exocrine gland secretions go through a duct or a tube, right? You can see how those secretions, like sweat, right, are going to just be secreted through that little tube. Versus endocrine, there's no, it's ductless, we say, right? No tube. So the secretions go into the nearby blood supply. See the blood supply surrounding it? The blood vessels? So what kind of secretions are endocrine secretions? Hormones. Bing, 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 bing. Winner, winner, chicken dinner, right? You're in it. That sounds good, doesn't it? All right, hormones. Yeah. Are they also made of epithelial cells? Yeah, for sure. So, but their secretions do not go through a duct or a tube, right? They go into the nearby what? Blood supply. And where does the blood go? It's an easy answer. Where's the blood go in our body? Everywhere. Good answer. That's the answer I was looking for. Yes, the practical answer. This, I'm a practical person. Everywhere. So where do hormones go? Everywhere. But they only have their effect because they're also a chemical messenger, right? They only have their effect when they bind to a mailbox called a receptor. They're going in the blood everywhere. But they only have their effect when they bind to the receptor. Some of you are thinking about insulin right now. If you work in a nursing home hospital, you're thinking about diabetic patient insulin, right? We'll hold that thought. We'll get there, okay? But remember, endocrine glands secrete what? What do endocrine glands secrete? Hormones. Where do the hormones go? Blood supply. Where's the blood go? Everywhere. How's it have an effect? Hormone has to bind to a receptor, a mailbox. Good answer. All right. So let's do a quick think time. Tell me the difference between endocrine and exocrine glands and where the secretions go. Remember, exocrine is going to be nearby, right? That'll be the key right there. Did I already ask you? We already did 4 primary tissue types. That's important. Okay. So next level of organization is what? We went from tissues to what? Next level organization up would be organs, right? Give me an example of an organ. Lungs, good example. Anyone else? Liver, good example. Anything else? Y'all think of any other? Huh? Or someone say something. Y'all have this in anatomy. Y'all know this. Y'all know things. Y'all know where it is and what it does. So you don't know, you're just being shy. So in order to be classified an organ, it has to be made up of 2 or more of those tissue types, right? Most organs will have all 4, right? Y'all learned that in anatomy, right? As you went down layer by layer by layer. So it's good to go back through and practice on that and kind of get a feel for how the arrangement of organs are made. Okay. And the next level of organization is what? Organs working together to form the what? Organ systems, right? And so we have 11 systems, 11 organ systems, right? So what are the 11 organ systems? Someone fast. Nervous. Circulatory. Digestive. Pardon? Endocrine, good. We know all about that one now, don't we? What else? Urinary, good. Reproductive, good. Yes, respiratory, good. Skeletal, good. Muscular, yeah. I was looking to see, -2, what's the last 2? Integumentary and, yeah, immune system, yeah. And immune system made up many of lymphatic organs as well as our white blood cells, right? Help to make up our immune system. Okay, y'all ready? I'll look them over real quick. List the 11 organ systems. You knew it was coming, didn't you? No, there's not too many. Think about how your body's made. List the 11 organ systems. You guys have access to all these notes. You can come before class ready to go. You can bring your notes, bring your laptop, whatever you need. Preparation is your friend. Feels good to be back in school learning again, doesn't it? Feels good to be teaching again. I love it. I taught general bio this summer and it was pretty fun, I have to say. I had a good time. I don't know if everyone else did. We tried to have fun. Yeah. All right, and so then all the organ systems work together to make up what? The organism, us, right? And that's what we're gonna talk about as humans, right? All right, so cells are embedded in tissues, right? They can't live and function without other cells doing their job. That's the co-component of homeostasis. So of all the organ systems you listed, which of those two organ systems do you think play the biggest role in homeostasis? They play a huge role, but I should have said controlling homeostasis. They do play a very important role. You're thinking about transport. Nervous and endocrine. They're the main controllers. Okay. Why? Why would they be? They're like the thermostats in your house. 'Cause they initiate, right? They release a chemical messenger, either a neurotransmitter or a hormone, right? That helps to regulate or control the other systems. So the two primary regulators of homeostasis are which two systems? Not respiratory. Nervous and endocrine. Those two are the two primary regulators of homeostasis. Okay. All right, you ready for your think time? What are the two primary organ systems that regulate homeostasis? The two primary organ systems that regulate homeostasis. Is there one of those organ systems that do not maintain homeostasis? You think of any? I had a slide for that somewhere. Is there one of them that does not regulate homeostasis? The reproductive. Good answer. Good answer. Reproductive does not maintain homeostasis. You're thinking skeletal is a framework, but skeletal is in our bones, in our bone marrow, we produce blood cells. Ooh, those blood cells are important for homeostasis, aren't they? Yeah. So there's other functions too, but that's one big primary one. But reproductive, good answer though. Good try. All right, so now you're ready for your think time. Which organ system does not regulate homeostasis? Which organ system does not regulate homeostasis? You know it's coming. Your online modules will be so easy after this lecture. You're like, this is a piece of cake. All right, so our body processes depend on the interplay in multiple systems. You guys talk about respiratory, you're thinking about it, right? What's the important role of respiratory, by the way? On the slide for it. You bet. Provide oxygen and to get rid of what? Carbon dioxide. Yeah. And if we don't get rid of carbon dioxide, what happens to the pH of the blood? It makes the blood more acidic, right? Is that a bad thing if our blood becomes more acidic? Yeah. Can we die? Yes, we can die. So very important. And why do we need oxygen? Why do the cells need oxygen? What'd you say, Sharon? We breathe in oxygen, we surely do. Yes, that's the one. Good answer. Cellular respiration, also called metabolism, right? So if we conduct our metabolism using oxygen, we say aerobic metabolism. Y'all heard that word before? Can we make a lot of ATP that the cells need to do the work, like pumping ions? Yeah. Absolutely. Then anaerobic, you bet, a lot more. All right. So what's the importance of the respiratory in homeostasis? That's your think time. You ready? That's your insight. What's the importance of the respiratory in homeostasis? More's better, right? More's better. Write it down, you'll remember it. That's the thing. You write it down if you're kinesthetic, you write it down like, I remember writing that on a piece of paper. That's how I do. I could visually remember what I wrote on a piece of paper when I take a test. It's all starting to come together. Okay, good. So some homeostatic regulated factors. Concentration of nutrients. What systems do you think regulate that one? Nutrients. That's your keyword up there. Yes, of course. And then we say electrolytes, water, salt, and other components. What system regulates that? Urinary. Good answer. Yeah. Very, very important, as well as urinary also helps regulate what? pH. Fine-tune balance is what with the respiratory, they work together with the blood buffers. Absolutely. Very important roles. We think of the integumentary. When we think of the integumentary system, what's the primary organ of the integumentary system? I said it. So does it also help to regulate water and electrolytes slightly? Yeah, somewhat, not like urinary though, huh? Not like urinary is major, right? Your kidneys go down, you're not gonna last long, are you? And the concentration of waste, CO2, we talked about waste, respiratory, helps get rid of the excess CO2. Where's CO2 come from, by the way? Metabolism, byproduct, good answer, byproduct of metabolism. And then, of course, urinary gets rid of waste, as well as a little bit of waste comes out even through our skin. Changes in pH, we talked about that. Volume and pressure, we talk about our blood pressure and our circulatory system, our temperature. What's some big players of temperature regulation? It does play a role. Like your thyroid hormones. You're thinking through, that's good. How's that work? That's right. Why? Because heat is a byproduct of what was the word you talked about? Metabolism. So you guys know, you go work out, right? What happens? You start getting warm and then you start to sweat. What's the benefit of sweat? Cools down the body, evaporative cooling. So if you get out in Oklahoma and it's 90% humidity, it doesn't work. You don't get evaporative cooling. If you're in Arizona desert and it's 10% humidity, you feel cooler when you sweat, right? You'll notice that. You'll also notice, where does the blood get shunted after exercise? To the surface, to the skin. And you'll notice that someone's face is very red, right, after they exercise. So after exercise, the blood gets shunted to the capillaries in the skin. We get a lot of vasodilation, and then we sweat, right? So the heat is moved to the surface. We sweat, and then it acts to do what? Cool our body, right? That works in homeostasis, right? That's the benefit. But if we don't sweat, we can't cool, can we? Right? So I'm not going to give all the answers away for everything on the assignment, but kind of think about how that works in homeostasis. All right. So temperature regulation, big one. So these are some normal ranges. Arterial pH. What's the normal range for blood pH? Right. So we have to stay in a narrow range. So again, we have all these systems working together, the respiratory system, urinary system, blood buffers, to help to keep pH in that normal range. And that's homeostasis. So you'll see some other substances also. All right, so there you can go through all these. We talked about some of these already. So you can go through the systems and their role in homeostasis. And there's pictures if you like pictures. All right, so interconnected system. We talked about that. the cells communicating with each other to keep within a fairly constant optimal level. That's homeostasis. Even though it's dynamic, it's changing, we want to stay in a fairly constant level. And you notice that with the substances we just discussed. All right, so in order to maintain homeostasis, we have to be able to detect the deviations from normal, okay? Kind of like your thermostat in your house. You have it set, like in this room, it's set for a specific temperature. And if we have a shift in temperature, it gets warmer or cooler, then it will cause a control system, whether it's the heat or the air, the furnace or the air conditioning system, to kick on, right? So we know how that works in our home. It's basically similar in our body. So we detect the differences, the deviations from normal, integrate this information, and then make adjustments to return it back to normal. So intrinsic, anytime you see intrinsic, means it's inside, internal, right, built into the organs. Extrinsic, outside, to alter the organ's activity. All right, so negative feedback is the key to this whole thing on homeostasis. So it's just like your thermostat on the wall. So that variable is going to alter the system. It's going to trigger a response that's going to cause an effector to either turn on the heat, turn on the cool. That's going to alter and bring it back to where it was. So that negative feedback is trying to bring it back to the initial rate where it should be. So it helps to oppose the change in the room, such as like our thermostat in our room and our heat and air system. Okay, so we have the stimuli such as temperature. We have thermoreceptors, right, in our skin that are monitoring our temperature. They send information. And so the receptor would be like a thermoreceptor in your skin. The integrator would be the brain. So the hypothalamus in our brain also has thermoreceptors that's monitoring temperature input. So the sensing coming in, afferent sending information to the brain, and then efferent sending it out to the muscle gland, causing the response. And then once we get the response, then we slow down then the information coming in that's being processed. So we're not getting a continuous release of that activity, but we're going back to its set point. Okay, so we're trying to get it back to the set point. That's negative feedback. Just like your thermostat in your house. This is like if your room's cold, increase in room temperature to the set point, your thermostat's monitoring, shuts the heater off. Same way with your body. So if it's hormones, you produce the hormones, you're not producing them, right? You get to the set point and you quit producing the hormones. Excuse me, I felt the tickle. All right, so this is an example with cold temperature. So when it's cold, the blood typically tends to shunt more to our core. And so that's why you'll see frostbite a lot with people who are out in frozen temperatures for a very long time. Because the blood will get shunted, we'll get vasoconstriction in our skin, and the blood stays shunted to the core to keep the heart going, right? Keep the lungs going, the organs. So this is an example of negative feedback. So the fall in our body temperature, those thermoreceptors in our skin and throughout our body will monitor that drop in temperature. We even have core thermoreceptors within our organs. And of course, we talked about our hypothalamus. And these neurons then are going to send the information then up to the brain, the hypothalamus in the brain, and it will tell the information to the skeletal muscles. So what happens when you're cold? What does it tell the skeletal muscles to do? Shiver. And when you shiver, you're using your muscles, and what happens? You produce heat as a byproduct of metabolism. Good answer. Yeah. And it helps to raise your body temperature to a certain point, right? And so it increases the body temperature to a set point. And then as your body starts to warm up, you stop shivering. Yes, because you're no longer providing the impulse up to those receptors, causing that negative feedback loop, we call it. So this is an example of glucose. We're not going to go through that one right now because we're going to talk about positive feedback real quickly because we just have a couple minutes. So positive feedback is more rare in physiology. This is an example where we see positive feedback is in childbirth. Anyone had babies in here? Okay. So the baby gets head down position, right? Puts pressure on the cervix and it will cause the release of oxytocin, right? Oxytocin is the hormone that causes cervical dilation. So pressure, oxytocin, pressure, oxytocin, pressure, oxytocin. And you just keep on until the baby's delivered, right? That's positive feedback. You get more and more and more and more oxytocin. Instead of we get to a set point, no more oxytocin. In this case, we're getting more and more and more oxytocin until the baby's born. Does that make sense? So we're not going back to shut-off system. We're going to more and more and more until the baby's born. Right? That's an example of positive feedback, is childbirth. And again, we see negative feedback. This is an example of endocrine with blood sugars, right? We see the negative feedback more than we do positive feedback. And then we have something that we don't hear about a lot. They're starting to learn more about in physiology called feed-forward mechanism. So when you start to think about a meal and you're anticipating eat a meal, you start to produce insulin before you even take your first bite. That's a feed-forward mechanism. That's a new one. Yeah. So it's anticipating something's going to happen. And so we'll talk a little bit about feed-forward. Again, they're just learning more and more about this as they learn more about the endocrine system. But this is another type of system. All right, you ready for your date times on it? You know it's coming, right? Give me an example of negative feedback system. Give me an example of a negative feedback system and a positive feedback system. Give me an example of a negative feedback system in the body, not in a room, not the air conditioning system, and a positive feedback system, negative and positive. This is in the human body. All right, and so then if we have disruptions of homeostasis, that's where we get illness, right? So we call this pathophysiology, right? Where we have disruptions in homeostasis. So like our case studies, we're going to be doing case studies throughout the semester. And it gives us an opportunity, and you guys are going to have a special topic you're going to present on pathophysiology. That's what you see with your patients most often is pathophysiology, where there's disruptions in homeostasis and you end up with illness or sickness, right? Or disease. And of course, some of that can ensue and result in death. All right. So I think that's enough for today. We got through our chapter 1. Do we have any questions? You guys have any questions? Feel like you learned something today? Hopefully you got your money's worth today. All right. It's my goal, let you get your money's worth. So I really encourage you to get all these assignments done before you come back on Tuesday. You have all day Thursday, right? We don't have class, so get it done. So you'll turn in your today's assignment on that table by the door. Make sure your name's on it. And if you don't have any questions, if you have questions, I'll be here after class. I'll be in my office for a bit. If you don't have any questions, have a good day. Get into the book, get online, get your things going. Try to get chapter 2 done if you can before class. All right, have a great day. You got a table right there by the door.